Hi, I'm Connie Sokol, a national speaker, best-selling author, program founder, and mother of 7, and loving it. I'm reaching and teaching 1 million listeners to live a purposeful, organized, and joyful life. You can too, so let's go. Hi, Connie Sokol here. I was invited to be interviewed by the SheRise podcast, and that's what this episode is today, talking all about purpose, your purpose. So let's do this.
This is the SheRise podcast, where we discuss ideas, thoughts, and tools to help women gently rise up in their purpose, in their influence, and in their happiness. I'm your host, Heidi DeGraffenried. Thanks for joining me. Welcome to the SheRise podcast. I am so thrilled today to have Connie Sokol with us. She is such an amazing woman. She's a national speaker. She's a best-selling author. And she's written 17 books, which is like, wow, including What Now? 8 Ways to Deal with Life's Difficulties, What's Next? Create a 3-Step Life Plan, and Faithful, Fit, and Fabulous. She's a media personality and a mother of 7 kids. She is a regular contributor on the top-rated lifestyle show Studio 5 with Brooke Walker. And she is the founder of the Balance Redefined program suite, which teaches people to live purposeful, organized, and joyful lives, and to find and define personal purpose and create effective systems to fulfill it. And she enjoys time spent with her family and eating decadent, yummy treats. And she is just an all-around delightful woman. So, Connie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. I love to be here.
Well, will you just give us a little kind of a brief background on yourself and kind of your story and what brought you to this point of really helping women to rise up and find their purpose?
Sure. It began a long time ago. Like I feel like galaxy far, far away. But several years ago, I had lots of littles, about 4, 6 and under. And I was just dying on the vine. I didn't have any family help here. And anyway, just each day kind of just seemed the same. And, I get that that's the stage of motherhood. So I'm not saying that, but the thought and the feeling went deeper for me. Like I had kind of lost sight of who I was. And I honestly didn't think I needed to nourish who I was while I was focused on raising my kids. But I came to a point that I realized I was so wrong, because you end up as a woman, if you have several children, you can be raising children anywhere from 8 to 15 to I'm still raising them. And it's been 27 years. I still have some under 18. So if you kind of shove the woman, wife, person that you are kind of under the rug while you do motherhood, you're going to lose who you are. And so when I went through that really kind of breakdown experience, I just had to go back to the nubs. I had to get to the core and go, who am I and what am I to do? And that's when I really started intentionally seeking the purposes that are for me. And of course, that ironically included being a mom. I didn't have to shove that as well, but all of that seeking, it actually made it that I was a better mother and I was more balanced and healthy, because I was still being a woman and a wife, and all those other pieces of what I call the motherhood pie, they were all being attended to in the way that I could ebb and flow them, because I was aware that they needed to be attended to, if that makes sense. So that's when this all sort of began. And I thought, man, does anybody else get this? Am I like late to the party? And I realized a lot of other women were struggling with the same thing, and they didn't know how to go about it, or if they needed it or whatever. And that's what started me on my journey of helping women figure that out.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much, because I do feel like I don't know if we're really consciously taught that, but we feel like, and maybe it's innate in us to kind of give all as we become mothers. But in that state, we sort of lose ourselves. And maybe that realization that you had is so powerful that we are able to really share who we are with our children. And that is a gift in itself,
And absolutely. And so needed. We think, I remember one lady talking to me when I moved into a neighborhood, and she heard that I spoke and that I wrote, but I kept my family first. So I would do this for maybe 10 hours a week or something, or sometimes 5, sometimes 12, whatever. And she was like, oh, no. When I got married, I used to paint, and I just put those paints in the closet because I'm a mom now. And I remember listening to her, and I thought, I'm going to see you in 2 years and I'm going to be able to help you. And almost to the day of our conversation, 2 years later, she comes to me and she is sobbing. She's like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Something is really bad. I can't, I don't have any motivation. I can't get it together. And I was like, let's chat. Just because I think it's almost a rite of passage, honestly, as women, that we go through this shifting where I remember years ago, I was talking with the therapist and he said, when we're single, it's like we're going down a river in a canoe. But he said, when you get married and have children, you are on open sea in a ship and it's different skill set. And I think sometimes we try to do life like we used to do it before, but then we have to shift and open up to this new metamorphosis of adding in this motherhood aspect as well as a wife, as well as being a woman. And what does that look like? How do we amalgamate all of those?
That is a really good point too. And I think sometimes it is hard and maybe it is seasonal, when you have little babies, they require so much of your time and energy. And so being able to kind of give that for a little while, but then not feeling that you have to always give all to them and kind of finding that place within yourself to shift, to kind of move back into a phase where they come to know you as a person as well, and not just as mom. They can paint with you, or they can go on a speaking assignment with you, or they can, kind of participate in the things that you are and learn who they are from that as well.
I think you're absolutely right. And I've actually seen the fruits of that, where I was so afraid for so long. I would just keep my writing and my speaking just so in the background. And just, I'd be staying up till 12 at night after everybody had gone to bed, or get up at 4 or whatever. I didn't want it to negatively impact my family. Right. But then I started to get this feeling thought of this nourishes and it expands your family. Now, of course, you want to be, and I know balance has been kicked to the curb, but I do balance redefined, which is you have to redefine what that looks like for you, how to get your ballast on this ship, right? With your sea legs. But I really realized how much my kids needed to see me try things and fail and then succeed or work through the process, because they were watching me. And just like you said, I pulled them in. When I did a book signing, I would take a child with me and then afterwards we'd go get a treat. But during that time, they were learning to speak to other people, or if I sold books, then they were helping with exchanging the money and things like that. And lo and behold, one of my children, who does not like to speak in public, did not like it, would just avoid it. She ended up learning how to speak in public, not from me sitting down and teaching her, but from her watching. And this is what she told me, watching me and then having those opportunities to interact with other people. She's very much an introvert. She's now serving a mission for my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and she's serving in France in a totally different culture. And she has a companion who is a Black woman that is French. I mean, talk about total different diversity and culture, and she's loving it. So I think these experiences as moms, we think, oh, I don't want to take anything away from my kids. And we do have to watch crossing that line, because women can get uber zealous and want to just go and do and save the world, right? But I think it's so valuable. Just like you said, when I paint, I would have them come with me. I'd scrapbook. I'd have them sit next to me and do their own scrapbook. When I did piano, I'd have them come over and listen or plunk. And I think these are things that we give of ourselves to our children, just as we give love or patience or attention. I think they're so vital.
Such a good point. So what do you feel like, we've kind of talked about that, just that belief itself is an obstacle to being able to really find purpose within ourselves. But what else do you feel like are obstacles to women being able to really find their purpose where they are and move forward in that?
I think really valuing that this is a thing, that knowing they're permitted to do it, and that once they're aware, they can feel the need of it, the calling of it. I remember I do podcasts and my own channel, and I interviewed this woman, Susan G. Matz, and you probably heard of her. She does global work for women, just incredible research for 10 years. And she heads up the UVU Women in Leadership Project, and she's now with University of Utah. But she said that in their findings with women, that if women were given a task, then yes, they would do it, and they would do it this X%, and they would feel X fulfilled by it, blah, blah, blah. But when they felt it was a calling, that they were divinely given a mandate, it was completely different. They were all in. And how beautiful that is. I think that's how most women feel about motherhood. That is it's a divine endowment. This is something that we do. It's a calling. And once we look at finding our purpose in that way, I think women shift the look of it. Instead of it's something fluffy, it's something kind of self-help. It's something that's kind of a little bit, well, self-care-ish. No. In fact, Russell M. Nelson, who is the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, he was asked in a seminar one time about what do we do to help people, especially youth, the most, to be able to live good quality lives. And he said, teach them two things, their purpose and their identity. And I have found in teaching women for 20 years, because that's been my marching orders for years, that as I help women come to a place to connect with their divine creator, whatever that looks like for them, whether it's, the universe, nature, whatever that might be, God, but as they come to that and get that higher power recognition of who they are and what they're to do, everything shifts. And I mean everything. I mean, right down to cleaning toilets or making dinner. Like it shifts. It puts meaning and a lens over it that you suddenly expand in your understanding, and you are more present and capable. And it's all because of coming back to that recognition of that calling. And then you feel more open and willing to engage and willing to try new things. So this obstacle, there's a book, The Obstacle is the Way. It really is the way to finding our purpose. When women can acknowledge, become aware that that's an obstacle for them, and then move through that, it actually opens them up into Disney soundtrack in the background, a whole new world, right?
That is such a powerful thought, that as women, that when we feel called to something, we throw our heart and our soul into that. And I think it speaks to just the nature of women in general.
Mm.
It's not about making a buck. It's not about building the empire. It's more about doing what their soul is feeling called to do. And so what do you feel is the best way to go about that? How do you think women can kind of find that calling within them?
Well, first and foremost, it's hands down, it's going to the divine. Again, whatever that looks like for you, but he knows you best. I believe in God, and I have felt him help me, even when I was clueless, more clueless than I am, but even when I didn't understand how he was guiding me, he will so lead you to become. I've bumbled and kind of stumbled along in my life. And I have to tell you that it's once I got intentional about partnering with him, things just changed, and I hit this sort of trajectory spike. If you've read The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, it's a fabulous book, but it talks about that compound effect, that as we go along and we go along, we actually get better at what we do because we become more magnified. And the nature of doing it consistently helps us to keep up leveling, and we up level in a sort of in this trajectory spike way. And so I've seen that with what God does. Everything I do has that foundation, so that even the spiritual and the secular, I have that foundation that he is helping me get there better, faster, and more meaningfully and more successfully when I have him guide my way, rather than me sort of read a bunch of books and just do a bunch of things. Now, that being said, I write a bunch of books and I speak a lot and I do a lot of things. So there is a place for that. And that's the next step. Is I so encourage women, read, watch, listen, engage in conversations with people that you see, that they have figured out their purposes and they are fulfilling them in those authentic and healthy ways. They're keeping what matters most, and they're able to do it. Doesn't mean they don't have hard things. Doesn't mean that they're doing it perfectly. It just means you get that sense from them that they have figured out some of those steps and they're living it. That's a key thing. Surround yourself with people like that. Go on the Facebook groups that have that. Read the books that have that, because again, Darren Hardy talks about the environment, the huge impact that our environment has on us, just in our rooms, in our homes, in our car, the people we choose to surround ourselves with, the things we watch or read. All of this is a drip system to who we are becoming on a daily basis, which creates our experiences, which creates who we are, which creates our memories and our future, right? So in the kind of a nutshell, in the steps to figure out our purpose, recognizing that God will help us figure that out, then we can become more aware and educated about it, start trying some things, and then see what happens. We don't have to go pell-mell. I see this with women a lot. We have this all or nothing mentality, and it goes back to what you mentioned, where when we're all in, right? But
Mhm.
Instead, we don't have to think we have to accomplish all those purposes right now at the same time. We're going to go crazy. I know James E. Faust talked about, he said, you can't eat all the baked goods in the bakery at once. You're going to get a tummy ache, but you can have it sequentially. And I have found that too, that it's an ebb and flow of maybe in one season I'm more of the piece of the motherhood pie is a lot bigger on with the younger children on day to day and making sure everyone's fed and clothed and loved and all of that. But then with adult children, that piece of the pie looks different, and that's okay. I'm still fulfilling my purpose, but my approach is different. So looking for those resources on how to do your approach differently and how to match that with the season of your life. So acknowledging the need for that purpose, knowing you're going to fulfill it, but going to God and saying, okay, what's a good way for me to approach it in this stage of life? Not shoving it in a closet and closing the door, but how do I approach it? What's the ebb and flow right now? I think, well, I know, and I've known it for myself, but as other women, I work with women in programs that I teach, and the different things that I do is I work with them and I help them to figure out this intuitive way of living a purpose-filled life. They find more meaning and fulfillment with being able to allow that ebb and flow and giving themselves that permission to live in that way. And it's more fulfilling, not just for them, but for their family and their friends, because they're more aligned on a daily basis.
Right. And that is such a good point. And it reminds me of when I was having babies, and it was like every 2 years, I'm having a baby, I'm nursing a baby, I'm having a baby.
Oh,
Just,
yes.
and I spent probably 10 years just reading, just
Yes.
absorbing and learning and drawing in information that made sense to me and that kind of helped lift and develop my skills and my abilities, and then being able to take time, with the work that I was doing with people, to take a break when I had a baby for a few months or during the summer, or, just kind of having that ebb and flow like you're talking about. And I can totally see how that process has happened in my own life. And I think the key, like you're saying, is that permission to just give yourself permission. And I've also found for myself that when I take it to God, and it has become more of a calling from him, and he's my partner, then my work is for him, and it doesn't matter so much what the outcome is, as much as just that I gave my offering. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest detractors from fulfilling our purposes is that comparison. It's,
mm,
oh, but I should have this many likes, or I should see some results already, or I need to go big or go home. And that's not when we look at the Savior, when he did a little plot of Galilee, so to speak, when you consider the entire vastness of the world and the small area that he was working within, we can get that concept of it is. I love the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I love Indiana Jones when she's like, man, basically, you look hammered. And he's like, it's not the years, it's the mileage, right? So you
right.
don't have to stress about, I've got to do this and I've got to do it now and I've got to do it so amazingly. I was listening to a talk by Kevin J. Worthen the other day, and it was called Knowing Who You Are. And he said the direction on the path we are going is more important than the speed. And it's just such a simple truth, but we forget it. We think we got to hurry and get to everybody we want to help, and we don't. We can be intentional, we can be paced, and we can fulfill our purpose. And sometimes, like you said, I did the same thing about 8 to 10 years. I just read and I kept thinking, when do I get to share this with women in a more effective way, right? And he kept saying, not yet, not yet. But then later, doors opened that were not even of my doing, that just one thing led to another. And I was able to share things in a way that was effective for my family and still keep my focus. So you're exactly right.
I love that. So if you were just speaking to a woman right now that's kind of in the situation where she's feeling kind of like she lost her purpose, she doesn't know maybe which way to go, what would your best advice to her be?
Own it. Own that this is your life. It's no one else's responsibility to take ownership for your choices in your life. And you may think you're in a situation where you can't control things and it is what it is, or you don't have the time, the energy, the money, the resources, you don't have the ability, you don't know all of these things. Own it. Own that you have the greatest gift, which is you have a life to live. And what do you want to do with that? And then take it that next step, that advanced step, and say, what does God want me to do with that? And again, whatever that religious, spiritual belief is for you, or if there's none at all, just ponder that. But consider there's a bigger picture than even we can imagine. And as we put the puzzle pieces together, we start to be astounded by what God's plan is and what he sees in us and has for us, even more than we can imagine. So I would say own that and figure out who you are and what you're to do through God's lens. And once you get that, then embrace it. And again, that will change everything. And it doesn't mean that once you get that ownership and you say, okay, I'm in to know my purpose and fulfill it, whatever it takes, then keep that partnership with him, because there are going to be a lot of things that are going to come your way, a lot of blingy things, a lot of shiny things in this day and age, especially, and keep that focus on knowing what those purposes are, almost like little pearls that you've been given, and keep your focus on that and then adjust the approach. I know years ago, I was approached by KSL to do a radio show for women, and they asked me to do it every day from 3 to 6. And I had to talk with them, and I just had to be my bold self. It was an amazing opportunity that I could do a one-time energy and get my message out to a great number of women. But at the time I thought that's when my kids come home. I'm a mom, and that's my counter time, chat time, connect and get the download time. I cannot negate that. So when we ended up meeting, I was just feeling, pretty overwhelmed and intimidated, because here's the vice president of KSL and here's a well-known radio host, and we're sitting in a booth and I'm checking for Cheerios and spit up on my shirt, and I'm just sitting there thinking, what? And the download came. I just said, you know what? I cannot do what you're asking, but I can do 2 days a week, and I can do it from 12 to 3 because that's when my baby naps. And they looked at each other and they went, job share. Yeah, job share. And thank goodness Ina Green had been approached as well. And she said, look, I can't do 3 o'clock either. So they did a template for the radio show based on that, where the 2 women were saying, I can't do that. And they said, okay, then we're going to have 3 hosts, and 2 will do 2 days and 1 will do 1 day. And then that became their advertising marketing pitch, which was, we get women, and one woman's not going to be able to do this until keep her family going. So we have 3 hosts. And it turned out to be a beautiful blueprint for people in media and in situations, and women at work or owning their own business, being able to say, I don't have to put my purpose in the closet. I can adjust my approach. And as I own it and I go to God and say, how do I do it in this season or this stage? Then we can move forward with confidence that we're fulfilling those different layered parts of us as women have.
That is such a powerful testament, to all that you're speaking. And I don't know anyone that walks their talk better than you do, Connie, with that. You've always been just so good at diligently seeking your purpose and diligently putting your family first. So thank you for that amazing example and the work that you're doing with so many women. Can you kind of share with everybody what you have going on right now, and how can they connect with you and reach out to you?
You bet. In fact, if people are listening, they're thinking, man, I want to know how to find my purpose. I've had a lot of women who have said that to me. And I said, let's do something simple they can dip their toe in. I mean, I have programs and things that I help women in 6 weeks and 12 weeks, but a lot of women feel a little hesitant, to even open that door. So I've created what we call the Find Your Purpose Challenge. It's super simple. It's free to anyone. It's basically geared for women, but men can do it too. But it's free. And all it is 5 short videos, about 5 to 6 minutes each. And I take you through a free brief workbook that takes you through some exercises that helps you funnel down where you're at, what you want, and what you can see, and kind of start imagining your life like, and start defining, getting down to the nubs of what is my purpose, who am I, and what am I to do. So it's called Find Your Purpose Challenge. To access it, it's really easy. You just text 5-day, so the number 5 and then DAY right next to it. So text 5-day to the number 31996. So if you just text 5-day to the number 31996, and then it'll just give you a little thing to press, and you can just get the download immediately. If you're like, I don't do that, I don't know how to do it, I know I have some older women who are like that you can go to ConnieSokol.com and you can find it there as well. So ConnieSokol.com pretty much has everything: my TV segments, my blog posts, podcasts, everything that you need to know. Lots of great free content. You could just go on and start figuring things out. And then if you want to take it to a next level, you want some accountability, you want to really make some shifts and changes, then I've got some great life-changing programs that we've seen incredible things from women that in the busiest, thickest times, they've been able to move forward and really see and feel the change, not only for themselves, but it dominoes right into their marriage relationship, into their kids, into their friends, and at work. It's lovely. It's wonderful. It's inspiring. So anyway, if people are looking for things like that, then go there, ConnieSokol.com, or text that number.
Awesome. And I have done some of Connie's work and it's fantastic. It's been really helpful. And I just thanks so much, Connie, for being here today and sharing your wisdom and your valuable information and just for all the good work you're doing. So
Thank you. And right back at you. I love how you love helping others and going about doing good. It's fantastic.
oh, thanks, Connie. Didn't you love listening to Connie talk about finding purpose and the calling of your life? I really loved her approach and the way that she has really done that in her life and been able to prioritize putting her children and her family first, but still being able to do meaningful work that fills her as a woman and not just as a mother. So let's do a little meditation around that. So I want you just to take a deep breath and close your eyes if possible. And as you inhale, you're just drawing in peace and relaxation and gentleness into your mind. As you're exhaling, you're releasing any tension, any busyness or stress. Let's just do another gentle inhale, drawing in that settling, clearing energy. And exhaling out the tension and the buildup of any day's activities. And then I want you just to open your connection to that light, drawing in the light, almost like taking the lid off of a vessel that's submerged in water and just feeling yourself being completely filled with the light of divinity and peace and wisdom and knowing, and feel it filling you up, flowing down through your legs, filling your very center, all the way up to the top of your head, flowing out through your arms, feeling completely filled with that wisdom, peace, connection to the divine. And then I want you to kind of soften your awareness and sink it down into your heart. And as you sink into your heart and to the space of the creation that is you, I want you to feel into who you truly are. What is your calling? What is the world and your heart calling you to do? If you're a mother at this time, maybe even looking at what your heart is calling you to do within that sphere of motherhood. And then just looking at those things in your life that bring you into the flow, bring you into that space where time sort of disappears and you feel yourself moving in a way that just it's easy and it's joyful and it's filling you as you're doing it. Think of any activities in your life. Maybe for me, it's art. I love to draw. I love to paint. I love to work with wood or moss. Those kind of projects, just time disappears for me. So think about in your life, what brings you into that space? What helps you to just flow? And as you're doing those things, recognize that that is a piece of you manifesting into the world. It's your creative energy and your creative self being manifested. And maybe it's baking, or maybe it's biking, or maybe it's music. Just thinking about who you are and the things that bring you into that space of flow, and how can you incorporate that into the life that you're living right now. Can you bring more of yourself into your mothering or into your relationships with your spouse, or maybe into your workspace? Or is there a way to adjust your work that it aligns more closely with this flow manifestation of who you are? And just allow those answers to flow through you. Let your mind be open and clear. And don't make anything wrong. Don't think about it as judging it. Just allow it to flow. And allow it to flow from your heart and from your center. And realizing also that when we spend time in activities that give us that flow, it increases our happiness. And as you find sort of your calling and your purpose and the ways that you can manifest the unique parts of yourself in this world, that you will find so much joy and become a more full, active participant in your life, that you don't have to be the cookie cutter. You don't have to be the same look of mother or wife or coworker or business owner as somebody else. That the more you can bring your own individual signature self to that space, the more power you're going to have to share and connect with those that really resonate with who you are. And I want you just to take a deep breath into that truth of who I am. What am I being called to do? And see your path out ahead of you. And see if you take that path where you allow yourself to be pulled in the direction of your calling, that you will achieve at the end that sense of fulfillment, that sense of satisfaction, the joy and happiness beyond what you can even imagine right now. And then notice also the roadblocks that immediately come up that are usually excuses or fears or doubts. And I want you just to acknowledge those and be willing to address those that need to be addressed, but keep focused on what it is you truly want. And knowing that just because those blocks are there doesn't mean you can't go down that path. It just means you need to work through those steps to get there. Maybe you need help moving those blocks out of the way or climbing over them or going around them. And just see that divine light being your guide, giving you the wisdom and the intuition and the guidance to know, how can I get over these roadblocks to get to that place of my calling and to get to that place of fulfillment and to allow this to be my road and my journey. And just feel into that end result, maybe even the last day of your life, that you're feeling the joy and the fulfillment and the satisfaction that you did what you came here to do. And you fulfilled that purpose. And just set that in your heart, that is your choice, that you are choosing to live fully and manifest fully what you came here to be and to do. And just feel yourself being pulled forward on that path, being moved forward on that path, and then actively making a choice to move yourself forward on that path and to do what it takes and take the steps to get through the obstacles that are there. And as you do that, that fulfillment, that motion, that forward energy will continue to drive you and guide you. And just take your hand and gently tap your heart, sealing in this choice, sealing in this desire and power to move forward on your path. And to know that you are here for a purpose. You're here to make a difference. And you're here to be who God intended you to be. And that you can be that person in whatever sphere you find yourself in. Thanks so much for joining me today in this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, please subscribe and share it with your friends and family so that we can all rise up in our purpose, our influence, and in our happiness. Have a great day.